We are about to embark on an immersive journey through the corridors of our minds. Stand by as we prepare for departure.
Welcome aboard, everyone, to the Productivity with Peace of Mind podcast adventure. Our journey will begin in just a moment. Inhale deeply and exhale. Our voyage takes us on a captivating tour, diving deep into the intricate layers of our thoughts and imagination. Brace yourselves for the complexities of our evolution. For a safe and enjoyable journey, stay seated, secure your helmet and protective goggles, and keep hands, feet, and legs inside while the ride is moving. Now relax and enjoy.
What if I told you the key to making a good, solid, informed decision in your life that you feel good about starts with slowing down and becoming present to your life? When we slow down and become present, we learn today how that brings us more clarity in what we're doing, what we're learning, and how we make those choices and decisions. Marilyn Eppolite, as a spiritual member, Akashic Records reader, and energy therapist, is joining us today. She has 35 plus years of experience in spirituality, energy, and body based therapies. She's a kidney donor, an artist, and an organic gardener. With her recent return from retirement to help clients find their inner wisdom, she's now helping highly sensitive people and empaths manage their anxiety and make clear decisions, which I absolutely love, especially with today's fast paced world. And when things can feel really overwhelming, to be able to make those clear, concise decisions is really an important skill. So, welcome, Marilyn. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Well, thank you, Lindsay. I'm so excited to be here. And as I was preparing for this, I thought, there isn't much difference between excitement and anxiety because sometimes it feels the same, that like jittery feeling. And so I was feeling, so I had to check in. I go, am I excited or am I anxious? And I'm like, okay, maybe a little both.
Yeah.
So it's a good tip for people to check in with themselves because sometimes, when we're doing new things, we don't know what we're doing half the time. We're
Yeah.
just jumping in. And so there is a little bit of excitement with it. So, yeah, we just got to ride it.
Absolutely. And, when we talk about indecision, it's something a lot of us struggle with, and not only struggle with, but really end up wasting a lot of time in that space. Can you talk a little bit about, why this happens and then how that shows up for us and affects our lives?
Yeah. Well, I'm going to give you the biggest truth bomb first. Okay? This is going to be the
I
most
love it.
important part, I think, because the way the world is right now, if you look outside of yourself and see everything going on, it's like, there's a lot of confusion. So of course, we are going to feel that. We notice it. We get confused very easily. The important thing is that the world is changing and it may look really messy, but guess what? It is a gift. And the gift is that we can't go outside of ourselves anymore to find truth. That might
Mm.
have worked before. You talk to an authority, somebody you think knows something more than you. But even with that information, you always have to bring it back inside. And you have to develop your own inner authority. So the confusion that we are living through right now is such an important part of our evolution. So important because if we don't shatter that old paradigm of looking outside of ourselves, we're lost. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping that this is the last part, the last era of looking outside of ourselves.
Yeah. Well, and that's such a great point because we can use the external world to learn and gather data, but truly the answers that we're seeking and what we know is best for us is within us. No one else can tell us, what the right answer is.
Absolutely.
And something else we talked about that I absolutely adored is that clarity comes through presence. So, can you tell us a little bit how we might start to cultivate that? Or if we feel like we're not very present for our lives, how do we start to bring that in so that we can make those clearer decisions and feel good about what we're doing in our life?
I think the hardest part for people to realize that you have to slow down. We are
Mm,
going a million miles an hour sometimes, multitasking. And if anything, that is going to bring chaos. We think we could juggle a lot of different things, but we really can't. We can't do them well. Um, it pulls us outside of ourselves. And we're not efficient that way. We're not focused. We don't have the clarity. So, the most important thing, and this may sound counterintuitive, but the best way of staying present is going into the body. Some people think they have to think their way through everything, but it is
mm,
definitely breathing, connecting with their body and where they are in space, and being able to get clear. The
mm.
mind cannot get clear if the body is not really here and grounded. So I would say the most important thing is the breath and the contact with the body. So I'll just give you a couple examples because I think this makes sense. When I talk about energy, some people, this may be new to them, um, but we have used these kinds of phrases over and over again. So when I use them, it may click. Okay. Um, if you use the example of ahead of yourself, you're really focused on your head, and it
Mm,
is in future time. And the energy of it, you see people that are ahead of themselves frequently, that live in the future, their actual physical form starts to change in the sense that their head projects forward and they begin walking that their head is before the rest of their body. It's very fascinating to watch. Somebody's in a hurry and you'll see their head in front of themselves. So this is the energy working through. Okay. Um,
yeah.
Another example might be someone is beside themselves. Everybody
Mm,
knows what that looks like. They're just not there. But what that really is that the energy has really like pulled out and is outside of their body. They've actually made another being next to them. you know, that is the state of mind of being outside of yourself. So, it's really important to bring this conversation of energy back to what people already do. They already know that. So they say, I don't understand this energy stuff. No, you do. You do understand.
yeah.
You use it in your language all the time.
Yeah. That's funny because when you and I first connected and we were talking about that phrase, I'm beside myself. That's something that I have said many times. And since we had that conversation, there were a couple times I actually said it and then I thought about it and I really felt it, which was
Mm,
really interesting to bring that awareness to that where I feel like when we get overwhelmed or we start to feel like truly outside of ourselves, we're losing ourselves and we're losing that present moment and what's actually really happening right then and there and in our bodies.
Right. And you lose your clarity
Yeah.
because, you're so concerned about, like, where am I in space, right? You're out here
Yeah.
somewhere. Like, how do I get
Yeah.
back
You're
in?
floating. Right. Right. Exactly. And when we are overwhelmed, our ability to make those decisions suffers, or maybe we start making poor decisions, or maybe decisions we regret. So, what would you recommend for how we can start to get out of that overwhelm and out of that spin, or stop being beside ourselves,
Right.
literally?
Well, the shortest form of that is to get grounded. Now, that is a word. Grounded has been used and so misunderstood. I try and make
Mm,
it as simple as possible, is that it is being in your body and your energy is dropped down. Because when we're thinking, it's all up here, right?
yeah.
And we have lost, our society, like, lives here, and the rest of
Yeah.
it's just along for the ride. Okay. It can't be. We need our
Yeah.
abilities. And actually, in order to be spiritual, we have to use our bodies to
Mm,
elevate our consciousness. This is our vehicle. And as long as we don't drop down into this vehicle, we can't drive anywhere. you know?
right.
So um, I'll just explain a little bit about what happens when we do get anxious. So when we can't think straight, that means the executive center, the frontal part of the brain
Mhm.
doesn't have the blood flow. We have gone to the back brain, the reptilian brain, and that is the fight or flight. So when there's no connection between these two parts of the brain, the reptilian brain is what rules the show. Okay. So for people that do have anxiety, I just recommend, don't judge yourself. It is a bodily function. But when it happens, then you need to know what to do with it. So I would say, whatever you can do to get the blood flow. And one of the activities that I would suggest and exercise would be called the neurovascular hold. And all that is holding the forehead and the back brain and just getting in a comfortable position and holding that for 5 or 10 minutes. I mean, that may seem like a long time, but you're looking to get the blood flow and it's going to take a while. And as you're doing that, you need to breathe and see
Mhm.
if you could drop down. So,
Mm,
that is an exercise. As you're doing that, it's almost, if you can, to breathe so you could feel more of your body. So you're going to let the blood in your brain circulate again because
mm.
you have gone offline from the anxiety. You have disconnected and you need to get back online. It's like a computer malfunction, and just think
Yeah.
of it that way. You don't have to judge yourself for it. It's
Yeah.
going to happen. We're going to get discombobulated, okay? So if we remember to do that, and I made up something. I went to Catholic school, so we used to write on index cards. All right. So
Mhm.
I put, as a reminder, that this is what I recommend clients do, is to write down a synopsis of what they need to do, because you could put it in your phone. Your brain goes offline. You will absolutely forget the
Yes.
20 or 30 tricks that I have to deal with it. You won't remember a lot
Yes.
of them, okay? So the best thing for us to do is to use our little cheat sheets to remind us, because I guarantee you, you will not remember.
Right. Well, I know that's been one of the trickiest things for me. And I remember I started practicing this with a therapist like 15 years ago of, okay, how do we catch ourselves before it's too late? And that moment, that like slight moment before you tip and go down the scale, or you've gone down the slide, like, whoop, it's too late. That moment before you catch yourself is really a tricky piece to like identify and find and then catch yourself before it is too late. So I love the idea of that cheat sheet and that note of, okay, right away, I'm going here.
Because it's there's too much coming at us at that time. And
Yeah.
I'll give you another exercise now, because I want to have that sense of dropping down. That was more of getting the brain to work.
Yeah.
But there's something called the hug. Some people call it the butterfly hug. There's a lot of different versions of it. And basically, it's crossing your body with your arms. And as you do that, you'll you're touching, you're bringing awareness to your body.
Mm-hmm.
You are forming more of a barrier between you and the outside world. You're almost like scooping yourself up and bringing it back in. So it is a physical kind of thing. And it really helps create a sense of safety. If
Yeah.
you could breathe and drop down, a lot of times when we're in communication with people and we feel that, yeah, we want to keep them a little more at a distance, what do? We cross our arms, right?
Yeah.
So we
Yep.
form that block to that soft underbelly, because this is the delicate part, right? You have your heart, you have your belly, your solar plexus area is your power center. Sometimes somebody will say
Yeah.
something nasty. Where does it go? It goes right into your gut, right? And so we
Mm-hmm.
already know these energy techniques, of crossing. But this is more of a, remembrance to childhood. How many children go and they hug themselves and they rock. So they're doing a self-soothing technique. So it's really
Yeah.
easy to do, when we get in these situations. And as you're breathing and dropping your energy down, it does help.
Even that term you're saying, like dropping down, just you saying that, like I feel my body get calmer.
Yeah.
That idea of like dropping down into yourself.
Yeah. And another word that I use is elevator,
Ooh.
because for some people that can't feel all their body, it's as if you imagine that, when everything's up in your brain, that you go to the next floor down so that you can
Mm,
eventually end up in the basement, which is at your feet. Okay. And you do it slowly. Like I've done it many times where I get this far, to the chest, and it goes whoop, it comes back up again. So you start again and you bring the elevator down in your mind and you stay at that floor, and then you go down again. And if it comes up again, that's fine. You are focusing your mind. So what you're doing in a lot of these exercises, like the box breathing and things like that, you're engaging that prefrontal cortex, the front part of your brain, to help you get out of that anxious state.
right. Right. Well, that's amazing. Even just like, trying these different exercises with you, even just for a few seconds, like I can tell how good that would feel. What did you say, 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, it
You
depends
hold
on
them?
what
Yeah.
state you're in, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
and
true.
so now I was going to talk about this later, but I think it's a good idea to talk about it now. So these take time and energy to practice them so that
Yeah.
you can pull them out of your toolkit when you need them. But
Yes.
I also have tools. Okay. I have on my desk. Okay. I have things like this is post-trauma stabilizer and fearless. You ever have a computer crash, right? It's like,
Yes.
you're not going to go do these exercises. So you have a couple sprays of these and you go, okay, I can deal with it now. So,
Yeah, yeah.
so there's all kinds of things to use depending on how much time you have. Now, say for example, this one, if you're in a car accident and you're in shock, this will help bring you back. You know,
Yeah.
you can't function at all if you are in shock. So, um, there's many different things to have. And we all have first aid kits. Why don't we have emotional first aid kits? I never understood that. So that's why I
Yeah.
create them in order to to handle that because that's what we need.
Right. Absolutely. Well, I love that idea of an emotional first aid kit. And I think I do this without realizing it because even, like at my office at work or on my bedside table, I always have a little oil, a little chapstick, little lotions, like little things to stop, even if it's just as simple as like putting on lotion on my hands and just like feeling my skin against my own skin, right? Just getting
Yes,
into my body.
yes.
And having that nearby, it sounds like is really important. Like having it accessible.
Well, because you don't want to have to think to go get it.
Right.
The quicker it is accessible for you, you will use it. Because if not, if you have to go routing through drawers and
Yeah.
cabinets, you're not going to use it. I know. I've told clients this so many times, and it's like, no, leave it out. It's okay if it's out.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Well, and I want to take a little bit of a look at your story too, Marilyn, because I mean, you've had quite a journey, including donating your own kidney, starting a new business beyond retirement. So, how do you stay focused and committed during those challenging times? And I also just, want to hear a little bit more about that kidney donation story as well.
Well, let's put it this way. I am a lifelong learner. I am learning all the
Mm,
time. And sometimes as you're getting older, it's like, oh. Um, but it's just something I can't stop. I just can't stop doing. So that's what I'm doing. I am learning, there's a lot of online stuff. Um, I have to deal with. I say deal with it. I'm not saying I always love it, but
right.
so that is part of it. But I'll just give you a little bit about my reason why I'm even doing this work to deal with
Yeah.
anxiety. I grew up on a
Mhm.
farm, as you said you did too, and
Yes.
you know how much work it was. And I was expected to do an adult's job as a child.
Mm,
And I realized that perfectionistic aspect of like I was always trying to be an adult. I was always trying to do way better. And of course, being a child, I couldn't succeed. I couldn't succeed
mm,
that. And I just didn't have the capability. So I think my biggest thing today is remembering that I am learning and that I don't have to push. I don't have to push. I can just, you know, be within myself and do what I need to do because what happens when you push? you create more anxiety. So, that has been a big lesson for me getting back into business like this, because there is always so much to do. So,
Mhm.
but as far as the kidney donation, I kind of had a premonition that that was going to happen a couple years before it did. Like when my brother had told me, he had kidney disease. He held on for quite a number of years before, he needed to go on dialysis. But at the time he told me, it was like I could see that I was going to donate. It was almost like I didn't even think about it.
Mhm.
It just, oh yeah, I'm going to donate my kidney to him. So, but the thing is during that time period, I had to stay really focused. Um, you know, fear is held in the kidneys, from traditional Chinese medicine. That's the
Mhm.
understanding. And my whole thing is I knew that I needed to clear out whatever fear that I had. Not that, it was complete, of course, but that was
Yeah.
my attempt. I was really focused on getting into the best health that I could,
Yeah.
and to clear out the kidneys so that there wouldn't be any real issue with it. But of course, I was older than many donors. I was
Okay.
already 64 at the time, so it was kind of an unusual situation. I didn't even know that they would accept me. Like they had the cutoff age at 60, and I'm
Wow.
like, okay, but they called me like within 3 hours. So I guess they,
Okay.
they said it was okay. But
Yeah.
going through the whole process of the testing, and it really took my singular commitment to stay on track, because my brother was worried that this wasn't going to happen. He had been on the donor list,
Mhm.
and nothing adequate was coming through, and he had pretty much given up hope until I said I would do it. And even then, it took a couple of months for us to go through all the testing to make sure that everything would be fine. So I had to stay with myself. I think
Mm.
people around me were freaking out more than I was.
Mm.
I was like calming them down.
Oh,
So, but like I said, I just really felt the commitment, and feel like I was in good health, and I was
yeah.
ready to go forward. So, um, that was the best part of preparing for the surgery and overcoming the effects. So, yeah, it was quite a journey. I had many other energy therapists to help me through the whole process, to work with me. And even during the surgery, I had people sending healing energy for the doctors and the staff to really support me. And I felt very held through the whole experience. So, um, yeah, it was quite an experience. So
It sounds like in the beginning you were pretty clear. Like, this is what I'm going to do. Did you waver at any point, or like did you, second guess yourself or have any, questions around that decision, or was that pretty easy to make?
I this was something in my life that I knew, I just
Yeah.
um there are other
Mhm.
things that weren't as clear, but I had a lot of
Yeah.
support from my family, my extended family. And I knew I wasn't just doing this for my brother. I was doing it for my entire
Right.
family, because he just impacted, the whole family that way. So yeah, it
Yeah.
was it was really important to do.
Yeah. So like knowing the reasoning behind your decision sounds like can make that, or get rid of that indecision or that, gray area of should I do it? Should I not? Because I think that that's that space we were talking about earlier that a lot of people will sit in.
Right. And it wasn't anything like that. It was,
Mm.
you know, for like energy things, it's like the hard line, that energy just kind of comes through your line of intention.
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
it was so strong for this. It was just there really was no wavering. So yeah.
That's amazing. Well, and I'm sure afterwards that felt incredible to know that you then made that impact and he's going out and making an impact. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, it was quite an experience for both of us. Yeah.
And so, not only having our why and our strong, reasoning behind our decisions, but I think also having that structure and support. Like you said, you were very supported along the journey and you had your community and you had your energy teachers and therapists and all of that supporting you along the way. Um, how how can that show up and how can we, find that on our own journeys so that we too can have kind of that, very solid, very firm decision making, especially for the really big decisions in our life.
I don't know. Sometimes I think those big decisions might be easier than some of the smaller ones.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if you're really connected to your why, why you're doing this, that that seems to be it's like the flag in the ground that you find your path there somehow. It's these other
Yeah.
things. Should I do this? Should I do that?
Yeah.
Because I think that big why, and staying connected to ourselves, um, is just really important. And it's a challenge for us. There's so many other things grabbing our attention all the time.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
really pays to have some kind of practice to come back to yourself or to kind of unplug from the world. I mean, I was never somebody that needed to go out and uh, you know, be in the world that much. So, um, you know, other people are just out there all the time. I don't know how they quiet their minds to know themselves because when we're with others we tend to be out connecting more, and so the connection to ourself isn't as strong. So
Mm.
it must be challenging. It is challenging for people that are speakers and they're out with big groups of people. They really have to work with their energy field to stay strong. Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe it's like the balance of the two, especially when we're looking at like those, like you said, the smaller decisions sometimes are more difficult because there's so many ways we could go and it could mean different things. Whereas like, okay, if I'm donating a kidney to my brother, that's an easy yes, because I know it helps him, it helps the family, it helps everyone he's impacting and, making a difference for. So that's easy. But if you're thinking of, should I move to, New York or Florida, right? Like there's some of those like 50-50 decisions or 49, 51, where you're right on the edge there. Like, so it sounds like maybe spending more time with ourselves to be able to have that clarity, which goes back to the presence we were talking about.
Yeah, yeah. And also, you were talking about structure and the physical holding, like I was really thinking about that. I've had kind of challenges with the idea of structure. Somebody gives me
Mhm.
like the SMART goals. I'm like, yeah, I am not there. It's like too structured for me. I go into my rebel. You can't tell me what to
Yeah.
do. But, so there's parts of us that react to things, but yet I do like having some form of holding of structure,
Yeah.
trying to group. a number of activities together that are all kind of the same in my work day makes it so much easier for me to stay calm and balanced rather than doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that and going over here and seeing clients and, right. So
Yeah.
I can respect that to set a plan, but I
Yeah.
also know that if I schedule 6 things and I only get 3 done, oh, well, I will need to do them later, and I have to
Yep.
stay out of judgment and say, all
Yeah.
right, that's fine. I need to live in the flexibility of it. So the structure holds you and the flexibility of it really kind of works together, so that we're not one or the other. And we talked a little bit, the last time we talked about like masculine and feminine energy. Like a lot of people in business, and I know when I had my business before, it felt like there was so much more masculine energy and so much more structure and so much more,
Yeah.
get out there and do. And
Yeah.
I could not maintain that. That was not
Yeah.
what I needed. I needed the feminine energy where I could relax and let insights come into me and then act on them, So and I'm hoping that business leaders are adjusting that way, because
Right.
go, go, go does not work. It's a traditionally have been a very masculine style. And there's so
Mhm.
many more women in business today, and that they are bringing, a different feel to how we do things.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I have a little bit more masculine energy than probably would be considered balanced. And I've learned the hard way and continue to work on this of how do I allow more spaciousness, more room for rest and relaxation and play, like pointless play. Oh my
Mm.
gosh. I went on a yoga retreat one year, and like that was my homework and takeaway was like go home and play. And I remember I bought all these coloring books and colored
Oh,
pencils. Of course, I had to make it like, beautiful, and it was all these like mandalas. It was so pretty, but like I had to teach my brain to understand that that rest and that quiet and the slowness is actually truly valuable and adds to our productivity. It doesn't actually take away, because I learned the hard way. I burnt myself out
right.
more than once probably. But so I mean, I love that call out. And then there was something else you said on the structure piece. You called it a holding. And that feels really good for me, because you're right. You don't want so much structure that it's militant. Like nobody just wants to be a robot. If we were, we could all turn into AI and computers, and right. Like we don't need our bodies and our brains and our emotions. Like we could just get rid of that if we want to be that militant,
Mhm,
right? I
right.
mean, that's not realistic, but you know what I'm saying. But, on the other hand, there's also people who, like you said, will resist the structure and then just ping pong all day and
Mm.
feel lost and overwhelmed and get nothing done and wonder why they don't feel fulfilled, or they get to the end of the day and think, oh my gosh, like what happened? Again, I didn't do that again, right? And then the relationship with themselves gets out of whack. So I like this idea of a holding. And I almost like when you said that, strangely enough, I envisioned like bumpers on a bowling alley, right?
Yeah,
Where it's like, here's what's going to hold you in your space, but you have room to play inside of that.
right. It's so supportive, you know,
Yeah.
it just like our energy body needs the structure, like
Yeah.
we kind of did the hug. It's like, okay, we're like bringing it in. It is a boundary, that that is important. We know where the boundary is. If there's no boundary, it's like we're like little kids. Woo, we're going everywhere. Uh, that's what happens to your
Yeah.
brain. It's like, doot, doot, doot. So yeah, just being more in the relaxation of allowing, receiving, like the feminine is just being open to receive. You're open to receive love and information, and it's just we're open to that. And when we're in our doing, in our masculine, we're pushing ahead. You can't receive
Mhm.
when you're forward in time, right? You're kind of future oriented too. So
Yeah,
it's no
interesting.
receiving can happen.
Okay, that's really interesting. Yeah, because I think I'm definitely the one who's like ahead of myself. I'm leaning in, right? Like I'm like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Like I'm like that
And
horse at
it's
the race,
exciting,
ready to go.
right?
Yeah,
It's exciting, but you know that you'll burn out. You know
yeah.
it's not great for you. And you're a person, I can tell that you have many skills. Your logic is a wonderful skill to have. And sometimes it can get restrictive, you know. But
Yeah.
as I find for me, gardening softens me. I mean, it's still
Ooh,
work,
like that.
right?
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm out there playing with the flowers and the plants and all of my vegetables, and um my feet are on the ground, my hands are in the dirt. I just love that. So that keeps me centered. So it's not play. I would never call it play, but for me, it's enjoyable, it's fun,
yeah,
and there are other things that I do too. But that I just love being in nature, and that soothes me. So I can be more receptive in that place.
yeah, yeah. The idea to, almost like lean back and open up a little bit more and slow down so that you can receive, I think is huge. And I mean, I'm gonna take that away. Like lean back to
Mm.
receive. I'm like getting all these affirmations from you right now, like lean back to receive. You said earlier, I don't have to push. That was something you said earlier in the episode. And I'm like, oh, mental note, new mantra, add it to the journal.
Well, I think you need to add it to the show notes.
Yes, I absolutely will. I absolutely will.
Your key takeaways.
Yes, truly, truly. I mean, this is awesome. Well, and you work with empaths, and I just want to touch on like what that is and, who is an empath and how might we know if we're an empath and how that then plays into our anxiety that we might be experiencing.
Big anxiety. So I lived my life as an empath and did not know it. Um,
Mm,
I felt like I was absorbing everyone's feelings. Okay. A lot of times we just
mhm.
have loose boundaries, and we are energy sensitive. We're not really aware
Yeah,
of it, until we
yeah.
learn that that's what's going on. Everything affects
Yeah,
us. It comes in, and it's like, whoa, what just hit me? Some people
yeah.
can walk in a crowd of people and they're feeling fine before they do. And then they're like, oh my God, I feel depressed all of a sudden. They were with people
Yeah.
that weren't feeling well. So they're absorbing all this information in the form of emotions that they are picking up. So I
Yeah.
would suggest that there are many people that are empaths that do not know it. Uh,
Hmm.
some people will begin to recognize that they know things about people before they're told. They're
Mm,
very intuitive. And they
hmm.
just assume that, but they're picking up on their energy all the time. So it's a great gift. But if you don't know what's happening, like at the time, I guess maybe I was when I first started working with people, working with their body, energy, and massage, there were sometimes I'd be knocked off my feet. I'm like, whoa,
Mhm.
what just hit me? Well, you're in
Yeah.
someone's energy field and they're relaxing. So everything's coming out and you're feeling it. So, it's a way, you have to find your way to work with that gift so that you're not being tossed around by, okay, is that feeling my feeling or somebody else's feeling, And it's hard because there are many people that are empathic who get confused because they are taking care of other people. Um,
Mm.
they know what somebody needs before the person knows because they
Mm.
read energy, they're picking it up right away. And so if you don't know that, you will think whatever you're feeling is your problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Somebody else's. And so that is, what I help people figure out how to maneuver through their lives. It's just one thing, to use it as a gift rather than as an albatross. Yeah.
Yeah. And you have a gift for us. I believe it's called the anxiety kit or the anxiety emergency kit.
Yeah, I have it's like a anxiety first aid resource guide, but you could make a kit out of the things that are in there so that you do have them available for you.
Yes.
They're just like 5 simple things. I mean, I have tons of little exercises to do, but these are just 5 things that you can do for yourself, like
Yeah.
I said, the little sprays because they're easy and some exercises. So it's an exploration, with the anxiety. I would say the biggest thing about anxiety is if we would only stop judging ourselves, we'd be in a whole lot better space.
Yeah. Truly.
Yeah, because that just drives our anxiety. Even if we didn't have any at all, that would create it. So,
Right. Well, I mean, I know personally, again, just throwing myself out there, but the self-judgment thing is huge for me because with that masculine energy of get things done. And I know when I said to do something, I usually do it. And usually within the time I said. And, with writing my book this year, there were some things where like I set a deadline and I meet it. And then there were certain deadlines I didn't meet. Like, for example, when I went back and edited it, after I finished the first draft, I got that done in my set timeline. And then I thought, oh, okay, all I have to do is like quickly read through this. I can do it in a week. Well, it took me 2 weeks. And 1 week in, I'm talking to a coach just beside myself, right? Just to throw that in there because I hadn't finished it in time. And she's like, it just takes the time it takes, right? You set your plan and then you figure it out and then you keep going. Like, okay, so it takes 2 weeks instead of 1 week. You're still getting it done, right? Like, and I ended up just laughing at myself because of that.
well, it's nice to have a goalpost, but if it's that rigid and you're going to hang
Yeah.
yourself about it, what good does it do?
Right. You're like, why am I even doing this in the first place if I'm
I
just going to use
know.
it as an excuse to beat myself up?
Right, it's just suck the life out of it, right? It's like, but
Yeah.
that's what we do, these old habits that
Yeah.
we were taught this crazy stuff, right? We were taught these
Mhm.
things. And our worth and our value has been tied to, oh, I must get that done. I must. No. It's something to
Yeah.
shoot for, but not to kill yourself.
No.
So yeah,
Right.
that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I love that. Well, and you have shared so many tools, tips, like exercises, all of these things. What's the first thing we should go do? What's the number one most important thing that we should all do as soon as this episode is over?
I would say be prepared for when any of these things show up in your life by learning
Mm,
your skills, learning
yeah.
things that you can do. But most of all, is just loving yourself through it. I mean, that
Mm,
cruelty that we have when we don't reach our goal, is, I mean, I know what I've done in my life, and I didn't do what I thought I was going to do. It was brutal. I'm like, oh, I can't do that anymore. The payoff is not what I want. So it's
yeah.
it's really the self-love will help heal. And if it's that
Mm,
much of an issue in your life, do what you did, get someone to help you through that, to
yeah.
overcome, because you can't move forward unless you address it. You can't like throw it off to the side of the road because it's coming back, right? It's
Yeah.
coming back.
Yeah. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much
Oh,
for sharing and pouring into us today. This has been such a blessing. We're so grateful you're here and really showing us how to like tactically get into our bodies and become present so we can get clear and make those informed decisions for our lives. So thank you so much for being here today.
well, thank you for having this opportunity to be with you and to share this information. I really do appreciate it, Lindsay. Thank you.
Thank you for braving the inside of your mind with me. The better we understand ourselves, the more deeply we understand the world. And as our awareness grows, life just gets better and better. If you've enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a review and share this with anyone else you think could benefit from listening. A quick reminder that the content shared in this podcast is for informational purposes only. I am not a licensed therapist, and the discussions here are not a substitute for professional advice. If you're dealing with a specific issue or need personalized guidance, please consult with a qualified professional. Your well being is important, and this podcast is simply a platform for sharing insights and experiences. I appreciate you spending this time with me. Until next time.